Okay, we're live. Hi guys, I am Tom McCaughley, author of Silicon Burning, first in my series of cyberpunk crime thrillers called Singularity Rising. I'm here just hanging out and going to read today Chapter 5 of The World of Cyberpunk 2077, provided to me by my lovely girlfriend Kira. So just going to carry on reading that. But before I do, I'm just going to read you guys a synopsis of my book, because obviously you guys are all big cyberpunk fans, so it's something you'd be into. So yeah, just going to get that out of the way real quick. Okay, here we go. Silicon burning. London has been upgraded. So have its nightmares. The year is 2045. Almost 30 years have passed since a devastating nuclear terrorist attack on London. Mothermind, an advanced artificial intelligence created by the Virtualife Corporation, now monitors British citizens 24/7. The boundaries between machines and humans are blurred. The gap between rich and poor is widened. The human race is diminishing and cybernetically enhanced transhumans are growing rapidly. The flames of rebellion are rising though, spurred on by an enigmatic hacker group known as Spiritform. But, after successfully infiltrating Virtualife's network, one of Spiritform's members falls victim to Jack 21, a prolific serial killer that has been terrorizing the transhuman population of London. Now, Virtualife hires Arthur Wells, a cyborg private investigator and former cyber warfare specialist, to retrieve the data stolen by Spiritform, before the secrets within are decrypted and revealed to the world. But little does he realise that he's falling into a deep corporate conspiracy and a whole new interpretation of the cat and mouse game. Pick this up at your peril. You'll not be able to put it down once you start reading. So that's my book, guys. Available on Amazon for just $4.99 or £15 paperback formats. So yeah, going to crack on with The World of Cyberpunk 2077. Today is Chapter 5, Law and Disorder. So it's the gangs and the factions of Night City. So yeah, that should be interesting. So yeah, first section, Law Enforcement. Oh, here we go, a little extract at the start. So from the Night City Inquirer. The next two articles are brought to you by our contributing writer, Olivia Hernandez. Our regular followers surely know her for her pieces exploring Night City municipal services, the corporate business in the Arasaka waterfront district, and her amazing story To the Crime Cities and Back Again, which details travels with Nomads to the infamous free cities of Chicago and Phoenix. This time she's surmised the various law enforcement agencies and the city's most prominent gangs, and she also takes the opportunity to tell us more about the Nomads, the independent and somewhat secretive inhabitants of our country's roads and wildlands. The editor of the Night City Inquirer. Okay. So, from the files of Olivia Hernandez. The American cities that survived the fall of society, the corporate wars, and all the other turbulence of the last 50 years are now lonely islands of relative law and order on the ocean of lawlessness and chaos. Lawlessness and chaos. Still, within each of these cities, there is an ongoing war for dominance between the agencies of law enforcement and various criminal organizations. Night City is no exception. Civilians and police casualties continue to rise as a result of this conflict. Over 200 people die in confrontation with the police every month, and an unknown number die every day in gang skirmishes and unrecorded combat sweeps performed by private corporate forces. For every 10 criminals killed, one NCPD officer loses his life in the line of duty. But the situation is not improving despite those officers' sacrifice and dedication. Homicides, armed assaults, robberies, drug dealing, human trafficking, and residential burglaries are an everyday reality, as violent feuds among mobile, well-armed, and cyber-augmented gangs add to that a countless number of petty crimes, and you'll have a pretty good idea of the city's street life. To say that the crime rate is tremendously high is an oversimplification, and the depressing level of poverty is not making things any better. Now, in 2077, Night City firmly holds the title of the worst place to live in America, and it's not going to give up without a serious fight. So here we go, law enforcement. Despite being highly outnumbered and having somewhat limited authority with respect to corporate sovereignty, the modern forces of law and order should not be crossed. In addition to being overworked, brutal, and often corrupt to their very bones, local law enforcers now share their duties with privately funded paramilitary organisations, corporate agents, or corp cops as they are also known. Naturally, those guys won't bite the hand that feeds them. Properties under corporate authority, including building blocks and districts, are completely within corporations' respective jurisdictions. Most of the smaller companies hire services provided by the leading specialised agencies such as Militech, Arasaka, or Lazarus for external security needs. From internal security, most smaller corporations prefer to rely on their own enforcers, who are less numerous but unquestionably loyal. Those internal forces deal with every crime committed on corporate turf, regardless of the perpetrator. The corp cops, justice is harsh and quick. They don't have a problem shooting first and asking questions later, if they ask at all. NCPD. So there's the corp cops. NCPD. The good old police are still protecting and serving on the city streets outside the corporate-controlled areas. These guys are overworked, underpaid, and with some exception, are not nearly as well equipped as their corporate counterparts. They also have to play by the rules, at least most of the time, so their mortality rate is relatively high. Frustration born out of powerlessness and overextension leads to brutality and corruption in their ranks, and that in turn results in negative public opinion. The chief of the Night City Police Department ostensibly answers directly to the mayor and the city council, but since most of the seats on the council belong to corporate-backed councilmen, it's obvious where the chief's loyalty really lies. Any crimes related to the corpos and their shady business are removed from police jurisdiction sooner or later, leaving cops to deal with petty crimes, gruesome murders, riot control, and gang activity. Dream drop, right? Just don't tell your mum what you're doing. Not to say that the police are a bunch of harmless guys with hands tied hands and armed with pop guns, especially not MaxTac. Their official name in Night City used to be the Cyborg Suppression Unit, augmented and armed to the teeth. They are the meanest sons of bitches ever to shine a badge. MaxTac's main duty is to deal with the cyber psycho threat, but they are also sent to respond with any critical situation that requires the use of superior firepower and brute force within the loose boundaries of the law. Collateral damage is perfectly fine by those guys' standards, so stay out of their way if you can. Netwatch. Netwatch was formed in response to the development of the net and the corresponding increase of the number of computer crimes. The organisation started as a private company in the European Union and slowly increased its influence to be counted among the most powerful and secretive organisations. Netwatch's official mission is to protect the net against cybercriminal activity, keeping it safe for business and communication. They are in charge of locating and eliminating unlicensed or rogue intelligence systems and arresting law-breaking netrunners. Local divisions of Netwatch are heavily financed by governments and other corporations, benefiting from a high degree of independence and top-notch equipment. Rumour has it that their operatives are well versed in conventional combat and cyber warfare. They have access to restricted anti-personnel and tracking software, including the infamous Black Ice. Although Netwatch's authority is vast, it varies depending on the world region. In the United States, they are free to roam, feared by cyberpunks and corporations alike as the dreaded boogeyman of the net hellhands. In the Pacifica region, especially in Australia and New Zealand, their actions are more restricted due to local regulations. So, more... Oops. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, more of Night City Police Department here. The Netwatch agent now. We've seen the trailers there. Yeah, shit. I can't believe the game's like out in 5 days time. What the fuck, guys? Like, I can't believe it. Jeez. Okay, here we go. The Gangs of Night City, the bad and the ugly. How did we end up with so many people joining the organized criminal groups that now claim control over various city districts? It all began during the recession in the early 20s, when companies were shutting down plants across the country. Thousands lost their jobs. It was a death sentence for smaller towns and cities where those facilities were the only source of employment. People started fleeing to the bigger urban centres, which offered new prospects, or so they thought. It quickly became obvious that the labour market wasn't able to absorb so many unemployed people. Now destitute and toiling in poor suburbs and cheap housing, these communities became the soil in which these gangs grew. Amid the downfall of government infrastructure and the disintegration of societal institutions, gangs rapidly swelled in numbers by absorbing new neighbourhoods. In many cities across the United States today, there are whole zones where gangs are the only true power, tenaciously resisting the attempts of the government and the corporations to reclaim their districts. So, some of the Voodoo Boys there. How many people we got watching? Let's have a quick look. How are we doing for numbers? One person watching on Facebook. Don't be afraid to say hi. You know, I don't bite. I'm just sharing the knowledge. You know, reading the book so you don't have to. Maybe I should. I'm not quite good enough for like audiobooks. I know that. Like I know, but yeah, I got one person watching on Twitch. You know, don't be afraid to say hi either. And what we're doing on YouTube. What's the weather like on YouTube? Let's have a look. Boo. No one on YouTube. Okay, whatever. Alright, let's crack on. So, Maelstrom. Disclaimer. The data and numbers presented on the following charts come from a leaked report produced for the Night City Hall outside of official channels. From what we can tell, it contains some inaccuracies and inconsistencies and presents a rather superficial view on the subject. Some of the prominent members and locations might be outdated. Estimated gang sizes are clearly understated, and other items such as cyberware and turf should be taken with a grain of salt. Threat level probably refers to the gang's ideology and its tendencies to commit random acts of violence, not the individual threats level of each pissed off, cyber-augmented, combat drug-fueled member. So think twice before we decide crossing that low-level threats. Max is a good idea. Okay, so yeah, that's about Maelstrom. Faction overview. A dangerous, violent gang from Night City's industrial zone. Members are fascinated by the net and cyber technologies, and frequently undergo extensive illegal body modifications. Many of the gang's members are on the verge of developing cyber psychosis, or already suffer from the condition. Maelstrom's physical appearance is distinguished by the gang's dehumanizing heavy augmentation and occult-inspired black metal tattoos. Cyber-optical implants, cyber limbs with built-in combat modifications, and subdermal body plating are especially common. Philosophy and structure. Maelstrom philosophy is dictated by an obsession with cyber technologies and the urge to improve the weak flesh, a fascination with the occult, and the pursuit of otherworldly sensations. These ideals are connected, as many believe that the over-augmentating and with cyber implants may lead to cyber psychosis and other mental disorders. Nevertheless, Maelstromers don't seem to be bothered by that, as they clearly enjoy sliding on the edge of madness. On their home turf of the industrial part of the Watson district, the gang is split into smaller groups that are each responsible for a different part of their criminal enterprise. Depending on the task, those groups can be as large as 30 members for raids, hit jobs, or protecting valuable cargo, or as few as 4 or 5 bodies depending on if they're simply patrolling their turf. Criminal activity and sources of income. Maelstrom's main revenue stream comes from the illegal smuggling illegal meds and drugs such as trifets. They are also known for taking hit jobs, which they execute in brutal and bizarre fashions. Many of their victims are found dismembered, skinned alive, or drowned in wet concrete. They also have a history of well-planned and executed heists performed on heavily guarded corporate transports. Another significant source of Maelstrom is the Totenaz Club, the most popular gangsters club and drink and riot venue in the city. Located in an abandoned factory, Totenaz is a place where the members of the other gangs come to party hard and listen to neo-death metal music, as long as they respect the Maelstrom's authority and customs. Any night at TTC with a body count of less than a dozen is considered crappy and boring. There are also unconfirmed rumours that the gang is somehow involved in the production of black market braindance records, especially bizarre, disturbing, and extremely violent BDs. Other purportedly popular products are recordings of so-called numbness, an emotional void that places users in a strange state of mind, which are quite popular among overstimulated BD users. Despite those rumours, NCPD has found no evidence connecting Maelstrom gang to the production and distribution of black market braindance. So yeah, that's the Maelstrom guys, those crazy, the crazy cyborg gangsters we saw in the first gameplay trailer, the first one they released, like 2018, I think it was, the big 45-minute long one, the really cool one where they really showed off the game for the first time. Okay, so here we go, the animals. Faction overview. Animals are an aggressive street fighting gang without permanent turf. Their members are known for eschewing the most common electronic implants in favour of custom brewed body enhancement and modifications. They use ultra testosterone and animal suppressants, including equine growth hormone, to make themselves bigger and stronger. Experienced brawlers and trained in various forms of martial arts, animals are keen on cage fights, duels, and other displays of brute force. Their ferocity and toughness makes them sought after as bouncers and bodyguards. They typically sport tattoos and hooligan hoods, as well as some artificial animalistic features, ranging from the purely cosmetic changes like spotted or striped skin and subdermal implants to extreme plastic surgery and cyber modifications like bestial jaws and vat-grown implanted muscles. Philosophy and structure. Animals are fascinated with the feral, primal side of human nature. They perceive this aspect of humanity as the border between man and animal, and are each on a personal quest to achieve, in order to cross that border, to establish themselves as a new dominant human subspecies. To achieve these ends, they constantly subject themselves to various brutal and violent tests of skill. They'll often take on dangerous cyber-implanted opponents, be they members of other gangs, the police, or corporate forces. They train in fighting sports, not for philosophical reasons, but to sharpen their effectiveness in combat. Internal gang relations are obviously equally animalistic. On their own impertinent turf, animals are divided into small packs, led by the biggest and strongest gang member, the alpha male or female. Disputes are resolved through trial by combat, which is fought until one side completely submits. Animals are mostly known for their ultra-violent raids on residential districts and other gangs' home turf. They also organise illegal underground fights and manufacture and sell drugs, mostly custom-brewed anabolic steroids. A few packs specialise in robbing drugstores, chemical transport, pharmaceutical companies, and other drug dealers. Some animals hire themselves out as bouncers at brothels and strip clubs, or as racketeers in extortion and assaults. So here we go. The animals. Also saw them in one of the other trailers, I believe. Yeah, what do you call it? The boss. What was her name? Sasquatch. That was it. Yeah, we saw her in one of the trailers. My favourite one so far, the Voodoo Boys. The Voodoo Boys, yeah, faction overview. An enigmatic gang from Pacifica with a dark reputation for their net-running skills and mystical voodoo flavour. Presumed to consist entirely of those with those with Haitian blood, the Voodoo Boys are an exclusive, secretive gang and are distrustful of outsiders. The gang was originally made up entirely of voodoo priests and priestesses. The prominent cast in the Creole culture of the Haitian diaspora. In 2062, the annihilating forces of climate change wiped Haiti off the face of the earth, and initiated a new chapter in the Voodoo Boys' history. The gang became the newly self-appointed guardians of the Haitian refugees' interests and safety in the Pacifica Combat Zone. Most Voodoo Boys are netrunners, so cooling suits and neural implants are common elements of each member's outfits, complemented by more culturally specific voodoo-flavoured elements like dreadlocks, tattoos, and the bones of skulls and small birds and rodents worn as charms. Due to the homogeneous nature of the Creole diaspora in Pacifica, coupled with the lack of any police forces in the district, it is difficult to obtain precise information about the Voodoo Boys' numbers, structures, or even their goals. It's widely known that the gang is devoted to uncovering the secrets of the old net, and it's commonly believed that they are continuously probe the Black Wall in the hope of making contact with rogue intelligence systems that live beyond the barrier. These activities have earned the Voodoo Boys the attention and enmity of the Netwatch organisation, whose agents are especially interested in tracking and dispatching rogue netrunners and independent, self-aware ISs. It is unknown to what extent, if any, the Voodoo Boys are connected with the actual voodoo religious practices in the Haitian diaspora of the Pacific District. Source of income. The gang's primary criminal activities involve the hacking of databanks and accounts within various corporations in search of restricted top secret data. They persistently violate Netwatch laws and regulations, especially with regard to the contact of ISs. The Voodoo Boys also hire themselves out as mercenary netrunners for private contractors who are interested in hit and run net running operations or exploring the forgotten and ruined parts of the old net. Other sources of income are harder to verify, but the theft of virtual currency and information brokering are probably among them. So some nice artwork with the Voodoo Boys there. See that quite well, I think. Yeah. Sixth Street. The Sixth Street Gang were founded as old-fashioned American patriots who came together as part of an ad hoc civil police force. Hello, Papa 88. They've since foregone their original goal of serving the public trust, and today they're no better than the other gangs who abuse their power and position in local communities. They regularly force smaller neighbourhoods businesses to pay tribute and protection money, and they're known to engage in various shady and outright criminal activities. The Sixth Street look is heavily influenced by military uniforms with patriotic accents, military boots, tactical vests and knee pads and cargo pants, baseball caps with old US flags, stars, stripes and eagles. Philosophy and structure. Sixth Street was formed approximately 50 years ago by the veterans of the Fourth Corporate War who were tired of local gang activity and the helplessness of the NCPD and decided to take matters into their own hands. They've gathered some equipment, refreshed their combat training, and took to the streets. The gang was created to keep thugs and hoodlums at bay, and its charismatic founders gave a way to protect themselves and seek retribution for the damage caused by the other gangs. Today, the majority of Sixth Street members are veterans of more recent conflicts, retired military and discharged corporate security officers who are unable to find other employment. The rest of the other members are civilians who were provided with military training just after joining the gang. Their main motivation is still ostensibly to bring justice back to the city, but their interpretation of the law is questionable and self-serving. Sixth Street's main headquarters are in Arroyo, but their other districts of operation each have their own local HQs that are responsible for patrolling their neighborhood and monitoring the gang's facilities. Sixth Street's activities include robbery, extortion, and gun smuggling. The group has extensive connections with nomad groups outside of Night City. The gang also steals and modifies cars. Sixth Street has talented techies and runs many garages and workshops around the city. They offer their services as combat taxi for hire, which has made themselves especially popular among edge runners and mercenaries. Despite their criminal nature, the gang is mostly tolerated by corporations and police forces. Unless gang members have caused trouble outside of their established turf, military-oriented corporations have another customer for their high-end products. And the NCPD's job is made easier by the Estras law that Sixth Street maintain in their neighborhoods. Sound like a bunch of Trumpers to me. So yeah, there's Sixth Street, guys. Some artwork of them there. How are we doing numbers wise? Let's have a look. One on Facebook. I'm not exactly a big streamer, am I? I know. One on Twitch. What life path am I choosing? I'm probably gonna actually base my character off the main character from my book, Silicon Burning. So he's going to be a corporate guy who turns, away from the corporate life and starts his own business and joins up with some criminal hackers. So, yeah, corporate basically. Okay. The Mocks. The Mocks are a small, non-territorial gang consisting mostly of sex workers, anarchists, punks, and other sexual minorities. Formed in the interest of mutual self-defense, their name comes from the old slang word moxie, denoting their determination to stand up for their oppressors. The Mocks like to wear outfits that mix the punk aesthetic with inexpensive fashions typically worn by prostitutes. But they tend not to wear clothes that would restrain their movements in any way, leaving them looking more like gangers than sex workers. Some members, especially those who specialise in combat, have heavily modified bodies that sometimes evoke a plastic doll style, but they may also be disguised with real skin. One of their gang symbols is a labrys, a double-headed axe, displayed on their walls, clothes, tattoos or jewellery. Philosophy and structure. The Mocks were formed during the riots that occurred after the death of Elizabeth Lizzie Borden, a strip club owner and former prostitute who was known for treating her workers fairly and defending them defending them from violent clients. In 2067, one of Lizzie's girls was brutally raped and murdered by the Tiger Claws gangsters. Lizzie avenged her killing by killing three of the assailants with an axe and displaying their bodies in front of the club, proclaiming that the same would happen to anybody else who hurt a prostitute. That night, Tiger Claws raided and demolished her bar before killing Elizabeth. These actions created an uproar that the Tigers could not have foreseen. Lizzie's death set off a wave of protective riots all over Night City, and Tiger Claw members and businesses became the main targets of violence. These events cemented Elizabeth Borden as a symbol of defiance against gangers, lawlessness and brutality. Her ideological successors commemorated by rebuilding her place, naming it Lizzie's Bar, and forming a gang that brought together those who felt that threatened and oppressed, especially among sex workers and sexual minorities. The Mocks do not have any strict hierarchy. Nevertheless, they are a gang, regardless of the fact that their members refer to themselves as those who protect working girls and guys from violence and abuse. They demand a substantial fee from their charges. They also run several smaller brothels from where they profit from prostitution, so they are far from behaving like saints. Main sources of income. Most of the Mock's income is generated by Lizzie's Bar, which is now an exclusive brain dance club. They do not control any contiguous parts of the city, focusing instead on protecting their facilities, members, and sex workers who operate in the vicinity of Lizzie's Bar. As long as they are left to their business, they do not actively seek confrontation with other gangs, although they have a tense relationship with Tiger Claws, who continue to test their patience and combat capabilities. So here we go, the Mocks. You're going with Nomad, eh? Yeah, they look cool, bit of Mad Max action going on. Who are these guys? Tiger Claws. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, faction overview. So one of the largest Night City criminal groups, the Tiger Claws, are a ruthless territorial gang from Japantown who use methods similar to those of Asian organized crime syndicates like the Triads and Yakuza. Gang members are predominantly Asian, and the organization's primary objective is to maintain power over their turf while occasionally forcibly annexing other gangs' businesses. Tiger Claw foot soldiers are recognizable by their luminous Asian tattoos, fast street bikes, katanas, and tantos. Philosophy and structure. Tiger Claw's approach to business resembles that of the Japanese Yakuza. Disrespecting or crossing even a low-level soldier can cause an immediate and violent reaction from the entire organization. But as long as they get what they want, everything should be fine. The Claw's top brass know that business is preferable to war in the long run, and that you can go further with a machine gun and the semblance of principles and honor than with a machine gun alone. On the other hand, many of the rank-and-file Tiger Claw members are sadistic brutes who are prone to violence, abduction, torture, sexual assault, and cruel or unusual killings are just a few examples of their depravity. It's not uncommon for young, brash, or simply drunk gangers to undermine their organization's ideology by abusing their status on gang turf, hassling outsiders, provoking fights on the streets. This behavior is considered dishonorable by the most high-ranking Tiger Claws crime bosses, but an outsider responding to gang members' disrespectful behavior in kind will rarely go unpunished. Most provoked individuals outside of Tiger Claw's ranks will wisely choose to avoid a direct confrontation unless they happen to have connections with the higher ranks of the organization. Source of income. Japantown is Night City's premier nightlife district, and the Tiger Claws control a significant portion of it. They own more businesses than any other gang in Night Cities: bars, restaurants, brain dance clubs, brothels, and casinos. Most of these establishments are registered as legal businesses, but many act as fronts for illegal operations, money laundering. The gang makes most of its profit money on prostitution and human trafficking, but also manufacture and distribute drugs, notably the infamous glitter, and some members eagerly hire themselves out for hit jobs. The Tiger Claws also have connections with various corporate officials who visit their places of business to have fun and blow off steam. The Claws have especially close ties with Arasaka's upper management. who have been known to outsource side jobs to the gang and pay them with cyber technology and military-grade automatic weapons. So here we go. The tag clause. Yeah, I think you're probably right, to be honest with you. Yeah, the Nomads would be harder. But I don't know, maybe corporate would be harder because nobody will trust. I mean, it might get you into some people to trust you, but nobody on the street will trust you if you're corpo. We'll see. We'll see. How many more gangs have we got? The Valentinos. Here we go. The Valentinos are one of the largest gangs in Night City. Strictly territorial, they operate in the vast, impoverished segments of the Latino barrios in Hayward, the Glen, and Vista del Rey, where they are strongly rooted in the local communities. They are representatives of the Chicano culture in Night City, and they have cultivated those traditions for more than a century. Valentino's members openly display their gang tattoos and gold jewelry with religious motifs, with the Santa Muerte and Jesus Malverde being the most popular and recognizable. They also display a taste for colourful clothing, pimped-out lowriders, and custom decorative silver and gold-plated guns. The majority of Valentino's gang members are of Mexican heritage, but other races and ethnic groups are welcome to join. Members tend to integrate quickly, adopting the Chicano culture by celebrating various Mexican holidays and customs like Dia de los Muertos, Quintanachas, Semana Santa, or Dia Nostra. I'm not Spanish. I'm not from America or Mexico. I can't pronounce these. I do apologize. Okay. Alright. So, yeah, I probably butchered half of those words. I'm well aware of this, yeah. So, the sense of common heritage, or at least some shared customs, binds the gangs together with the local people to form one big family. The community's loyalties protect the gang members, making any police or corporate attempts to infiltrate the Valentinos almost impossible. In return, the gangers protect the whole neighborhood. It's for these reasons that betraying one of the gangs is almost the most heinous crimes a Valentino can commit, and is usually punishable by a particularly gruesome death. On the other hand, Valentinos who died fighting other gangs, police, or corporate enforcers are often remembered as saints and martyrs, commemorated in song and depicted on giant murals. The memorial street art functions as religious iconography, complete with written descriptions of the saints' glorious deeds. Source of income. Valentinos own many legitimate businesses, such as restaurants, auto shops, and nightclubs, but they also operate brain dance recording studios, sports betting parlours, and construction companies. Any of these could be used as a stage for criminal activity, as meeting places, money laundering operations, or illegal chop shops for stolen vehicles. Their main sources of income are gun smuggling, car theft, drug trafficking, robbery, burglary, hit jobs, including assault or murder, prostitution, and illegal modification of weapons and vehicles. Big CV there, you know. It's good to be diverse. So here we go, the Valentinos, right there. Okay, who's next? I don't recognise these ones. Hold on. Warning: incomplete data. Scavengers. Okay. Faction overview. Scavengers are ruthless, low-life scum who prey on unwary, law-abiding citizens and gangers alike. They emerge as a side effect of widespread availability of body augmentation. Harvesting cyberware and organs is a nasty but profitable business, and scavengers fill this niche by assaulting their victims on the streets. They're absolutely brutal with zero regard for human life. To a scav, a person is just a set of products waiting to be sold on the black market. Scavengers don't obey any particular philosophy. They don't care about anything about themselves and profit. They are merciless and immoral, and their methods are far from sophisticated. Scavs aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. The loosely defined gang has achieved a monopoly in the body parts aftermarket, since their customers would rather pay for human organs and second-hand cyberware than get into the gore business themselves. Scavengers don't have a single cohesive piece of turf. Their groups are spread across the city, marking their presence with tags and graffiti. Due to this scattering, they tend to form small bands with little or no internal hierarchy or structure. Their groups are often led by the most unscrupulous, savage, and cunning individual. Despite their lack of organised structure, scavenger groups are definitely not disregarded or taken lightly. Knowing that their gruesome reputation is one of their few assets, they will make sure to make a grisly example of anybody who crosses them or complicates their business. Source of income. Abduction, assault, mutilation, and dismemberment are the scavengers' usual modus operandi. Their victims, or donors, as the scavs call them, are often never found because the gangs tend to utilize the entire body of their unlucky prey. Any cyberware and organs that can be harvested and sold are placed directly onto the black market. The then impossible to identify leftovers are either dumped, burned, or left as fodder for the rats into the city sewers. Scavengers are the main supplier of low and illegal cyberware for other gangs, small-time criminals, and shady reprodocs. They also frequently hired to perform unpleasant or inconvenient tasks with which their clients do not want to be associated, be they simple heists, hit jobs, or reductions. As long as there's money on the table, the scav will take the job, no question marks. Lovely, lovely people. So there we go, the scavengers. Okay guys, I really need to get a glass of water because my throat is really dry after all that talking. So I'm just going to take a quick pause there, and then I come back. Just for you, Papa 81, I'm going to read about the Nomads. So yeah, I will be back very shortly, guys, for a continuation of the World of Cyberpunk 2077. Don't go anywhere. Okay, welcome back, guys. So I realised I missed out a chapter, an entire chapter. So I'll read that out the next day, never mind. Yeah, anyway, I'll just carry on reading out this one, which is about the Nomads, the roving refugees. The global crises caused by the worldwide financial meltdown had resulted in an enormously high unemployment rate. Hundreds of thousands of people around the globe lost their homes and jobs and homes. It's estimated in the old US, 1/4 of the population became homeless. Waves of riots swept through the country, often brutally pacified by the governments and ascending corporations. It was then that the other groups of refugees began to move from one city to another in search of work, safety, and the prospects for a better life. Most of them travelled by automobile, often with their entire families and all of their possessions in tow. It was the greatest crisis in modern history. For the next 80 years of mass migration created a new social group bound by a common history, way of life, and family ties. These people eventually became to be known as the Nomads. Nomads are always on the move, travelling across the country with their cars and families as their predecessors did. Driven by economic concerns, they travel from job to job, settle briefly, do out their work, and then pack up once they're done. They live in camps that usually consist of multiple vehicles parked around abandoned buildings. During their stay, these buildings can serve as meeting places, living quarters, a hospital, a school, or any other facility where shelter might be required. The Nomads are divided into families, clans, tribes, and nations. Families can be up to as few as 2 people, and as many as 100. A clan is made up of multiple families, and they can range from a few hundred to over 1,000 members. Tribes are much larger, consisting of several tens of thousands of people. Nations are the largest groups and numbering in the hundreds of thousands. The biggest nomad nation has roughly 1 million members. These population numbers are somewhat fluid, though. The classifications themselves are not interchangeable, but are somewhat fluid, but the classification themselves are not interchangeable. While nomad families, clans, tribes, and nations do have their conflicts and disagreements, they rarely escalate into anything more serious than a superficial feud and never end into all-out battle. Nomad nations have their own territories, and they do mind their own business. So we go for the Nomads there. Nomad nations have their own territories and they do mind their own business while maintaining the cordial conflict and alliances with one another. In this regard, nomads are very different from the gangs in big cities. Nomad Education. For a group of individuals without permanent habitation, nomads are surprisingly well educated. They don't want their culture to go feral, as they used to say, so they continue the rural American tradition of homeschooling. Teachers educate adults as well as their children, and camps will often feature mobile libraries, net running stations, and communication centres to stay in touch with the rest of the world. Some bigger nomad encampments even have their own mobile cinemas and theatres. Classes primarily consist of practical knowledge like mechanics, farming, or engineering, manual occupations that can help them qualify for better jobs. But some nomads study classical literature or even philosophy. In many cases, nomads' spoken language is often more sophisticated and elaborate than those used by the denizens of the great cities. Nomads today are often divided into 7 nations and Rafes Shiv. As the name suggests, 7 nations are comprised of 7 different groups of nomads, each assembled around a single charismatic and respected leader. Rafes Shiv are outlaws and outcasts from nomad society. They operate as highway bandits and play by a different set of rules. Each nomad plays a unique role within their respective group. There are leaders, drivers, defenders, scavengers, medics, teachers and workers. Everyone should be useful and contribute to the community in one way or another. Groups will accept a variety of jobs during their travels. They might transport people and goods, both illegal and legal, or seasonally work on farms, or enter into short-term contracts at large construction sites by providing both manpower and equipment. While nomads with special skills do their part on the job sites, the remaining able-bodied nomads stay at the camp to maintain their vehicles and care for the children and elders. When the job is done, the whole group gathers their things and moves on. Nomads operate on the edge of the law, mostly attempting to avoid direct interaction with the local authorities, be they governments, corporations, or independent communities. However, they won't hesitate to trade in stolen goods, smuggle fugitive over state borders, or scavenge for abandoned towns, military bases, and caravans. Most groups wouldn't have the audacity or desperation to attack corporate or government-owned convoys, but Rafes are the exception to this rule. Rafes are bandits, criminals, and outcasts. Exiled from the Nomad stations, they form dangerous gangs that prowl the roads and cities on the outskirts in search of prey. The name Rafes is a combination of the several projective nomad expressions. In some nations, an elder will officially sentence an individual as a Rafes in a ceremony that banishes the condemned member from the community forever. Although numerous, Rafes do not form a single nation or even cohesive tribes or clans. They each travel without families, resembling roving gangs, each of them ruthless, destructive, and aggressive. To most city dwellers who don't often encounter nomads, Rafes are indistinguishable from their former kin. Robberies, convoy ambushes, and raids on small towns and city suburbs performed by various Rafes gangs are performed by victims as nomad attacks, and are reasons that the innocent nomads are sometimes greeted with a negative response. Though each nomad has a specific job within the group, a lifetime spent around automobiles has made most of them capable drivers and mechanics as well. A nomad's vehicle is at the core of their livelihood, and knowledge of their vehicle's use and care is treated as doctrine. So there we go. Some more nomad art there. Okay, the Eucalios, or Alcadios? Alcadicos, originated in Los Angeles, and are one of the more well-known nomad groups on the West Coast. They erect temporary camps across the deserts, but they never convene as a single group simultaneously. Their caravans operate in the 3 states of the West Coast, where they transport passengers and merchandise over state borders in large, well-protected convoys. The Alcadicos faction formed spontaneously in the early 2000s, Los Angeles, around Juan Alcadicio. Juan was a migrant who made a famous, impassioned speech to the media in response to the tragic death of his son, who had recently been killed in a gang shootout. Juan mourned the collapse of the United States, and his message of the sorrow and loss touched thousands like him. During the collapse, he led a large group of exiles from Los Angeles to Mexico City. The Alcadicos, as they became, consolidated and aided other nomad groups in rebuilding Mexico City. After Juan's death, the group returned to California to bury their leader in his hometown. And for the next 3 generations, the Alcadicos were led by the members of the Santiago family. In addition to scavenging and hiring themselves out as manual farm labourers, Alcadicos also engage in bootlegging and the transport of stolen goods. Some clans and families focus solely on delivering their packages all along the Nomad Trail and all the way to the twin crime cities. Here we go. Rafes, allegedly a subset of Raf and Schiff. While the Nomads as a whole usually operate in a judicial grey area, the Rafes ignore the law completely. Aggressive and vicious, they have dominated the areas surrounding Night City, raiding small villages and attacking small groups of nomads and weekly guarding corporate transports. The Rafes are one of the dozen small nomads originating gangs on the west coast, allegedly consisting of exiles and outcasts from various nomad stations. Rafes are highway robbers who live off the spoils of their raids. They will occasionally visit larger cities to take on transportation contracts, but they are notoriously unreliable mercenaries, often breaking their agreements and keeping their consigned loot or passengers either for ransom or for the gang's own enjoyment. Alright, so that's Nomads. So yeah, I missed that chapter. I was on chapter 3 before, so that was chapter 5. I should have read, so I missed chapter 4. So I'll read that tomorrow maybe? Or next day, whatever it is. And the point is I'm going to try and get this whole book done before the game actually comes out. So 126. Okay, hold on a sec. What time is it now actually? Yeah, I haven't got time to read it out tonight, so I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah, cool. So, next time, a vertical slice of Night City society in 2077. Alright, so that's for next time, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. Looks like I got at least one subscriber today, so that's nice. Alright, well, catch you guys soon.